Welcome to Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose. Today we have a very important episode. We're talking about hearing loss and how important it is. I have Randy and Morgan here with me. They are technology specialists in helping people with hearing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
So Randy and Morgan, I'm not sure I got that quite right. What is your title?
It's Hearing Instrument Specialist.
Hearing Instrument Specialist. And so what does that mean?
Within the state of Kansas, you can get a Hearing Instrument Specialist license by the Kansas Board of Hearing Aid Examiners. So basically that means that we are licensed to fit hearing aids, fit and sell hearing aids, as well as do hearing examinations and diagnosis of hearing loss.
And I understand, Morgan, you have 7 years of advanced college education in this field. And so that's really interesting. 7 years. Is there that much to it?
There really is. And I think that's kind of what we hope to share with the public today, is that there is a lot that goes into hearing loss, not just at the level of the ears, but also beyond that as well.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because why do people come in to get tested for a hearing aid? What's going on in their life that causes them to come in?
A lot of the times it's their wife is mad at them and have been mad at them for about, a year. So they finally give in and get dragged in to get a hearing test. Or it can just be, hey, I can't hear my grandkids anymore. Hey, can't be in conversations with more than one person because I can't understand what they're saying. Or they sound like cartoon characters, or like they're mumbling all the time. So usually it's some event that kind of flips that switch in their brain of, okay, something is wrong, we need to come in and I need to go in and figure out what's going on.
How hesitant are most people the first time they come?
Pretty hesitant.
Very.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the reason why they're there. So like Randy said, they can have peer pressure from their communication partners, whether that be family or friends, or they can have a difficulty that they experience on their own. And I think depending on which one that is kind of shifts how they think about hearing, how they think about hearing aids. Because if it's a problem that they perceive, they're going to be more likely to be open to the idea. Whereas if it's a family member saying, hey, I think you have hearing loss, they're a little bit more resistant to that.
What causes the resistance? Like, I've heard people say, well, I don't want to look old, so I don't want to wear a hearing aid.
Yeah, sometimes it can be vanity. Sometimes, a lot of the times I feel like they're not ready. We say a lot to, at least I say a lot to patients, I know Morgan does too, that if you're not ready for a hearing aid, then you're not going to wear it. You probably shouldn't buy it yet. It's a big change. So it changes how your brain perceives sounds. It changes the way you perceive the world. So I think a lot of the hesitancy is if they're ready for that type of change.
And to kind of go off of that, again, like Randy said, a lot of people associate it with age. We have patients that are 25. We have patients that are 100. And everywhere in between that. So it's no different than, if you have a vision loss, you wear contacts or glasses. If you have a hearing loss, you need to wear hearing aids because it enriches your quality of life.
Okay, it enriches your quality of life. It could be a child.
Absolutely,
you see
there are
little
many
kids wearing glasses. There are many children that have hearing devices. Because it's important to hear, not just because you're missing out on life, you're missing out on the jokes, you're missing out on the gossip or the stories or just interaction, missing out on what's going on TV, movie theater, whatever it might be. And it's not just that you're annoying everyone around you.
Right.
Huh? What?
Absolutely.
Huh? So it's just not that, though, is it? It's bigger than that.
It is.
And maybe that will cause people to take action. What is bigger than that? Missing out on things and having to ask people to repeat themselves all the time, or just becoming silent, not participating.
A lot of research has shown that there is a huge connect between hearing loss and cognitive decline, specifically dementia and Alzheimer's. And the reason for that is when you're not hearing everything you're supposed to, your brain is working extra hard to fill in those gaps. And that strain leads to issues with processing and memory that happens in the brain. secondary to that, when you are straining to have a conversation, we kind of talked about you tend to isolate. You stop doing the things that you were previously doing, whether that's hobbies. Like we have a lot of older people in retirement homes that play bridge with their friends, and they're like, I couldn't hear so-and-so, so I just stopped going. Or I like to have lunch with my daughter on Wednesday night, but I can't hear in the restaurant, so I stopped doing it. And the social isolation also builds to that cognitive decline, because when your brain isn't getting that information anymore, it's kind of like use it or lose it.
Okay, use it or lose it. So you're putting a strain on your brain without even realizing it.
Correct.
I had a doctor mention that to me one time, is that even if you don't think that your brain is paying attention to a TV in the other room, if your brain is straining to hear that, it's taking up brain power and it can cause you to trip and fall. So not being able to hear can lead to physical injury as well.
It
yes?
can, yes. And that is, I think, a little known fact with the public. Again, they think, I just can't hear, so I'll just have someone repeat. But really, it's so much more than that. Research has also shown there is a huge correlation with hearing loss and the risk of falling. So when we think about our balance system, we have like 3 major reflexes that keep us upright. So the first one is the vestibular ocular reflex that helps kind of keep your head and eyes correlating, keeping information that way. And then you have your vestibular colic reflex, which again kind of stabilizes your head. It's found in the neck. And then the final one is your vestibular spinal reflex. So that's going to keep your posture upright. With that, though, is also our peripheral information, our sensory information. So that's what we see, what we feel through touch, and what we hear. And so again, the hearing aspect, if you have auditory deprivation, if you're not hearing the way that you should, that is going to affect your balance system.
Plus, I'm just thinking that sometimes as we age, our peripheral vision is coming in like this too. So if you're having hearing loss and vision changes, and all of that contributes to people's, one of their greatest fears, is Alzheimer's or dementia.
Correct.
But cognitive decline, confusion, and you can help improve that by doing everything possible to help your vision and your hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Randy, you said a lot of times it's maybe a wife dragging a husband in, or she's been nagging and pushing her husband to go.
It's everybody, it's men and women that have hearing loss. But yes, I feel, probably not by any scientific study, but that, the men are a little bit more reluctant at times, just because they can kind of get set in their ways. They feel like they don't have as big of a problem. But it can be the reverse as well. It can be the wife that can't hear anything and is just as reluctant. So I think it's just very individual, but it's both. We see just as many women with hearing loss as we do with men. Anybody can have a hearing loss, so it's important to get, just to go get checked if you're having even a slight feeling that something might be not quite right. So.
And I have a couple of women in my own family that are procrastinating and putting it off. It seems like a big insurmountable chore to go do this. There's something that holds them back from doing it.
Right.
One intends to wear her late husband's equipment and just get it checked, and I'm like, I'm not an audiologist. I don't know anything about this, but I just kind of think that seems weird. And maybe you need your own, and maybe we should explore that. Sometimes people will have millions of dollars in the bank and they will not spend it to get themselves a nice pair of eyeglasses or a hearing aid. How often are people worried about what it's going to cost and trying to reuse old equipment or buy the cheapest equipment?
A lot. We are fortunate enough to sell more affordable hearing aids than a lot of the market does. But you do see hearing aids go for thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars for a set of them. So it makes a lot of sense why a lot of people would like to reuse or have a set gifted to them, that kind of thing, because it is hard. A lot of retired people are on fixed incomes, so they don't have a lot of extra income to spend on hearing aids or anything, especially in today's kind of economy and how things are going. Affordability is definitely a problem, and we see it a lot. A lot of my patients they're not the wealthiest. I don't work in the wealthiest part of Wichita or Kansas. The people I kind of see in my club. So they are just kind of taking it month to month. There are different programs for like financial assistance, and there's different things like financing available and things. But it is definitely something that I wish as an industry was a little bit better on pricing, because it is probably the main reason why people are reluctant, or one of the main reasons why people are also reluctant to come and do anything about it, because they're like, I don't have, $4,000 to drop on a set of hearing aids. And so they do look at less expensive options first.
But there are other options. There's
are
things that can be done.
Yep.
So you can probably do some creative problem solving with them to help them figure it out.
Right.
And then some people maybe do have the funds to do it,
Yes.
but they don't realize how important it is and why it's such a smart, good investment.
Right.
Yeah, with hearing aid technology, it's not a one size fits all. So that's why there are multiple different styles of hearing aids, multiple different price points with the corresponding technology levels. And your specialist is going to be able to recommend what we think is best for you. That doesn't mean that we're not flexible. If someone says, I have a hard budget here, we're going to be respectful of that, because something is always better than nothing. But it is, again, we make that recommendation based off of our experience. So if we're telling you, hey, we think you would be really successful with this one, it comes from a good place. And again, you're investing in not just the device, but a better quality of life.
And how often should they come in to get it checked and to get retested and make sure that everything is calibrated and working correctly?
So no different than you would go to the doctor annually for your medical exam, or to the dentist, or even to get your eyes checked. We recommend a hearing test annually as well.
So working it into your routine, but
Right,
probably
yeah.
no longer than a year.
Right, and I think Randy and I both have had this where we're like, is this your first hearing test? And I mean, they're well in their 60s, and you're like, okay, it kind of puts into perspective how often people don't think about hearing loss.
I was just going to add, any adult, really any adult over the age of 19, 20 years old should be probably getting either annual or every couple of years getting a hearing test. If you have a hearing loss, it should be at least once a year.
And are a lot of these tests free?
They are.
So the testing is free?
Where
And
we work, it's free.
Yeah.
where you work
Yes.
is free. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're at 2 different Sam's Clubs.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. We heard from word of mouth how well you two work, and so that's why we brought you in. I've been wanting to do this topic for a long time because I know how important it is, and it's important within probably everyone's family, just like mine. It's an important issue, but I hadn't really thought about getting my hearing tested, and I think that's pretty obvious that I should do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, people lose out on sleep because they can't sleep at night because they have ringing in their ears. What is that called?
So that ringing or buzzing that people hear, clinically it's called tinnitus. So what tinnitus is it's actually a symptom. It's not a disease process on its own. And it can be seen in the presence of hearing loss, but also with normal hearing. What it is basically a person is perceiving a sound that is not actually there. And that's because it happens at the level of the brain, not actually in the ears.
Is there something that can be done if you are hearing a buzzing or a ringing that's not actually even there?
So if you have a hearing loss and you have tinnitus, we recommend hearing aids. Because what's happening is that frequency range that's most affected by hearing loss, your brain is actually searching for that auditory input that it's no longer getting. And so it's playing that sound to you. So when you wear the hearing aids, not only are you correcting your hearing loss, you're temporarily relieving that buzzing.
Wow. Because sometimes people will sleep with the television on at night because they're trying to drown out what might be a sound that's not even really there.
Right.
Right. And certainly you can do those things as well, because the hearing aids are really going to only help while you're wearing them.
Yeah.
So most people at night are not wearing their hearing aids to sleep. And in that case, you could use a fan, any kind of noise maker. We say don't do white noise. You want a noise with some type of filter on it. So whether that be pink, brown, whatever. We just don't want white noise because, again, research has shown like that can actually make your symptoms worse.
Okay, so that's like a static sound, the white noise.
Yeah.
And but there's a lot of different things that people can listen to off their phone or something. Could be waves or nature,
Correct.
and so you think those things could be helpful.
Absolutely.
And pink and brown noise, I've never heard of that before. What is that?
So it's really just a therapeutic sound. What it is it's a mix of multiple different frequencies. White noise is all of the frequencies. So that's what I mean when I say we want a filter on it. We don't want to expose the brain to all of those noises. We want to just select a few. And again, that's just because research has shown that the brain prefers a filter versus no filter when it comes to the ringing.
Okay. What are some of the other things that you might mention for viewers they should know? What are people shocked about sometimes when they start learning about this?
A lot of people just don't realize about how much they're missing. They may think it's a few things, like, oh, I have to turn the TV up a little bit, or, oh, I miss every couple words in a conversation. And then they put on a hearing device and it's like their world explodes. Sometimes, I've had people who've come back to see me after wearing them for a week and they're like, there are birds outside of my window in the morning and they're loud. Or my dog's paws on the floor make noise and I didn't know that. Or my pants make noise when I'm walking or just sitting down. So they hear all of these things that their brain hasn't been hearing for so long, and they're kind of, it's a little bit of a shock at first. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that's just kind of shocking, is how much you are missing that we kind of don't realize we are missing, because the longer you go with the hearing loss, the more it's just normal. Your brain kind of replaces it as normal, and then we give it that stimulus back and it's like colors,
That's amazing. It seems like maybe it's a dulling, a gradual dulling, and then your brain accepts the dull as normal.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because in most cases, you're going to have a hearing loss. The average patient has a hearing loss for multiple years. So that's why we tell patients this is a process. And that's why, because the hearing aid gives all of that input back at once. And like Randy was saying, whether it's birds or the dog's paws on the floor, that is somewhat overwhelming. But in order to hear conversation better, to hear the speech better, we have to amplify environmental sounds as well. And sometimes patients don't quite make that correlation of, well, why can't I just hear speech? Why do I have to hear all of this behind me? And we have to explain, well, all of it kind of goes together. So they have to be patient.
So is it louder than what it would normally be, the birds outside the window?
To them.
To them, because they're just not used to it.
So like when we listen, say we're in a restaurant or the store, we hear that background noise. A person might have to talk up, even a person with normal hearing will have to talk up and may not be able to concentrate all the way. But eventually our brain will like dull it out in the background. It just becomes normal. It's normal noise. Or the blinker on the car, because you have a story about that. But, just little high-pitched noises or things like that, our brains make it normal, and we just don't even realize that we're hearing them until they're gone completely. And then you give it all back at once and they're like, this is a lot. And so we have to, a lot of the times we have to start somebody that's brand new to hearing, in any sort of amplification a little bit lower than what we would like to in terms of like prescription wise. And we're, that's what we're here to do, make you comfortable while you're going through this process, and then giving back a little bit more and more as time goes, so it's not so overwhelming and kind of shocking right at first. So it definitely is a process. It does take more than one adjustment typically to get it just perfect, which I think is also something a lot of people don't realize, is it's not just a one and done, got my prescription, got my hearing aids, now I'm done. It is something you have to come back in maintenance, and you also have to kind of realize if it's not working perfect right at first, your brain is making changes. So things are going to get sometimes worse before they get better, and sometimes better and then worse and then better again,
Okay.
So it fluctuates and everyone's different.
So understand it can be brain change versus the equipment.
Right.
And it's a matter of just kind of getting that synchronized.
Yeah.
So for people that might be hanging back and reluctant, can you explain what the experience might be when they come meet you the first time?
So the experience is going to be pretty painless for them. We do a hearing test takes about 20-25 minutes, just kind of depending. Fitting hearing aids doesn't take a whole lot of time either. We allot a lot of time for questions and walking them through every specific thing they need to know for care and what to expect and how to take care of things. It's a lot of consultation and a lot of getting to know the person and building that relationship between specialist and patient. Because I tell all my patients, I'm gonna become your new best friend for at least 3 months. So we're gonna be talking like every week, we're gonna be best friends because they need that support person. Mm-hmm. So you come in, it's support. That's what to expect, is just support.
What have you learned by working with people that have hearing loss and are just coming to see you the first time?
I've learned patience, but also, like when I was growing up and things, at jobs prior, you definitely don't realize that you have to, I was very shy and very quiet and things like that. I've learned how to project. And when you have patients that cannot hear you before we fit them with a hearing device, you have to learn how to still communicate with that person. So you learn how to project your voice and you learn how to articulate very well and talk a little bit slower so that they understand you before they can hear you.
Okay, very good. What drew you into this profession?
So for me, my dad, when I was 8 years old, he was diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma, which basically what that is it's a brain tumor that innervates the 8th nerve, which is your hearing and balance nerve. Mm-hmm. And so for them to safely remove that, they basically counseled him before the surgery and said, your safest bet is if, we sever that nerve so we can take that out. And obviously no one's gonna gamble with surgery outcomes, so he was like, whatever you think is best, but that left him deaf on that side. And he also had to totally relearn all of the balance things that go with that. And so it's not like in that moment I knew that I wanted to do this, but later on I knew 2 things. One, that I wanted to help people, and that also I wanted to be in the medical field. And so I kind of just put all that together and landed as a hearing instrument specialist.
That's very good. And if someone's at home and they're still doubting that they should get their hearing tested, is there some way at home where they could kind of self-assess or evaluate where they think they're at?
There are sort of different tools that they can look up, like, hey, these are the symptoms, but really it's, if they aren't hearing conversations, if they find themselves not being part of group conversations anymore and they'd rather just be sitting on the couch alone, mm-hmm. if they are having to ask people to repeat themselves constantly, or if they feel like people just mumble or talk soft. They're like, oh, well, that person in my family, they just talk soft, so I can't hear them anyway.
Right.
But then it's usually like, oh, everybody just talks soft. So, mm-hmm. But if you have that feeling, there's a lot of free services, a lot of free hearing tests. The first step is a hearing test. And then from there, that's how to get the ball rolling on mm-hmm. everything else.
Mm-hmm. And really, if people are pointing out that you're not hearing something, because sometimes you can be on the phone with someone and say, I think I hear a beeping in the background, and they didn't realize that was going off.
Yes.
So people will make you aware probably if you're not hearing something.
Yes, very much. If you can't hear the smoke alarm beeping, then you probably should come in for a hearing test.
Okay. So. And such a delightful sound to be missing out
I know, right? But if you can't hear that annoying beep on the smoke alarm, you should probably come see somebody.
Well, it's good to know how easy this is to get tested, that there's different financial options. It doesn't have to be scary. You're not committing to a big bill just by getting tested. You're
Correct.
Just gathering information.
Yep.
Correct.
And that there might be some really easy solutions that just shock and delight you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this wonderful information.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
If you have questions about this topic or anything else that we cover, we hope you'll reach out to us at empoweringseniors@kpts.org or reach out and give us a call at 316-686-4500. I'm Katherine Ambrose, and I'll see you on the next Empowering Seniors.